Seattle faces nation's worst inflation as living costs soar to the moon. What's causing this? Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's watch a little video with the CEO of WalletHub.
Area. Not as bad as some areas, but still not good. We had a couple of areas that top 3%, but 2.7, that's a pretty high number.
So when you weighted the change from 2 months ago to now, and as well as the year over, June of last year to this year change, those two things combined gave us that number one rating. Worst number one rating.
We're number one.
Correct. Yes, this is definitely one you don't want to be number one in. No. And there's a number of reasons for that. I was breaking down some of the numbers, and it's, again, 1.4 for the past 2 months, 2.7% from a year ago. Wow. Food, and of course, Carlene, with the CPI measure, it just measures, rate increase, inflation over a number of different types of goods and services primarily in metro areas. Where did Seattle? Okay, food went up 1.5% in June. The index for what we call food at home, those are grocery store purchases, 1.4%. Now, the food away from home index, now that includes things such as restaurants, cafeterias, vending purchases, 1.6. So overall, now for the year, now this is pretty staggering. The food index rose 4.8% over the year.
4.8%. 4.8%. That is massive. Massive.
4.8% for food costs, whether that's grocery store or going to restaurants, up in 1 year.
Right. That's the composite, 4.8%. Right.
So that was kind of just one little quick angle view. Much of the blame for Washington State's high prices has been directed at the state's Climate Commitment Act, the CCA, a cap and trade. See, it's such nonsense. They told us it was going to be pennies on the dollar for gasoline. Oh, no. The emissions scheme introduced by Democrats under Governor Jay Inslee. What a shocker. This article is from Ari Hoffman. Seattle is experiencing the highest inflationary pressure of any major U.S. metropolitan area. According to a new report from WalletHub, using Bureau of Labor Statistics, the data compared inflation over the past 2 months. We heard all about that. They measured 23 metro areas, and Seattle topped the list. We're number one. Number one. Prices in the Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma area have jumped 1.4 in just the last 2 months and 2.7 over the last year. 4.8 for food prices, and energy costs surged by 5%. I talk with folks here all the time, and we all talk about how much things have gone up. We're not just, getting old and going, I remember when a 6-pack of Coke was $1.30. And I do remember that. I remember when it was $1.30. Then went over $2 and it was like $2.50. Things just, I remember when a candy bar was a quarter. I think they were a quarter, maybe 50 cents when I don't know. Less than now, right? Washingtonians are already paying the 4th highest grocery bills in the country, trailing only to California, Nevada, and Mississippi. That means a family of 4 spending $1,000 a month on food is now shelling out an additional $576 annually due to inflation. And are we making $576 more per year? No. And that means we're going backwards. Most people here, unless you're a tech bro, you're going backwards. Rent through the roof. Interest rates on mortgages through the roof. Housing costs through the roof. Median housing price here in Seattle, Seattle proper, I think it's like close to 800,000. And in the general area, it's like $1 million. $1 million for median housing price, meaning half or less and half or more. Who can afford that? Seriously. And with interest rates the way they are, no wonder my businesses have been slow since July of 2022. You know what I mean? It has been you got all these sellers sitting on 3% mortgages. Why would they come off of them? Move? Where to? And why? No good answers there. Meanwhile, state and local policies are compounding the economic strain. January 1st, Seattle's minimum wage jumped to $20.76 per hour for all employers, one of the highest rates in the U.S. And in July, Washington's gas tax climbed another 6 cents per gallon, now totaling 55 cents, with annual increases tied to inflation. Through the roof, just through the roof. And it's because we got to pay for all of this liberal, ridiculous policies that are completely unnecessary. You got to pay for all this nonsense. So they got to squeeze us for dollars. Despite national trends showing gas prices leveling off or falling, Washington stands alone. All right, again, number one. This is so great. The Evergreen State is the only one in the U.S. where gas prices are higher than they were a year ago. And we were told this cap and trade bullshit program, which is just basic Democrat shenanigans, it was only going to be pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the price per gallon of gasoline. Pennies. Mere pennies. Well, how's that working out? Gas prices are higher than they were a year ago. I mean, we're even beating California there. Go Washington. God, we're doing great. Much of the blame for Washington's high fuel prices had been directed at the cap and trade emissions scheme. I love that Ari called it a scheme, because it is. That's what it is. The law requires companies to buy pollution allowances at quarterly auctions, allowances to become scarcer and more expensive over time. The added business costs eventually show up at the pump because they just ding the consumer. And yet we were told, oh, that won't happen. That won't happen. It's a way to squeeze us for money. We just got squeezed for $9.2 billion in new taxes. These are the costs that, people say, oh, I want to move to Seattle. All right. And I still hear people saying, I'm moving to California. I'm moving to LA. And all I can think of is, good luck with that. All right. Or why? A lot of people move here for jobs. Even jobs the job market here has cooled down. We got Google laying off people, Microsoft, Amazon. I mean, the tech companies just loaded up with labor during the pandemic, right? They were all fighting each other for jobs. And now they're having to do a little bit of, well, we need to let you go. We're going to let you go to an opportunity where you can really thrive. But it's not just fuel and food straining budgets. Seattle residents are facing ballooning service costs, particularly for food delivery. Seattle now faces the highest DoorDash delivery prices in the United States. So my son sent me a screenshot of his DoorDash order, and I've talked about this in one other podcast. It was one burrito, a basic chicken burrito. It was $11.99. He was going to order it through DoorDash because he just wanted to see how much it would be. So from Chipotle, $11.99 basic burrito, Chipotle. And then there was $12.99 for service fees, delivery costs. And then there was another $4.99 charge on top of that because we need to pay the DoorDash people a minimum wage of $30 an hour. And the total cost for my son's burrito, which he did not get, for an $11.99 burrito was $32 total. $32 for a burrito delivered to your door. That'll make you want to go get it, won't it? Yeah, just absolutely insane. I think I did a basic food order for 3 of us because we were working on the jet skis and it was hot in the garage and I didn't want to go inside in the house and make a bunch of food. And we got some hungry guys doing some tooling on jet skis. We were fixing something, God knows what. They're still not fixed, but we're this close to having them running. And summer will be over and we'll get them fixed. And I did a basic food delivery. And I want to say it was $70 for 3 of us for just a basic Mexican meal. I'm sorry, Hispanic. Is that what we're doing now? Nobody ordered anything fancy. And that's Bellevue. My son lives in Seattle. Wildly expensive. So DoorDash is the most expensive. Extreme regulations like Seattle's laws are making it more expensive for consumers to get the food they love, harming local businesses and reducing opportunities for Dashers. I mean, it's insane. The company said in a statement last week, Seattle customers are now paying more than twice the delivery fees charged in other Western cities like Denver and San Francisco, despite Seattle being a smaller market. Seattle's only about 750,000 people, and transportation costs aren't spared either. A recent analysis by NetCredit found Seattle had now the highest average cost for a 30-minute Uber ride in the U.S. at a staggering $60. I've got that one covered here too. All right. Seattle is the most expensive Uber rides in the U.S. And it's because, again, knucklehead shenanigans by the Democrats trying to squeeze us for money because they want to jack up the hourly wage so they feel good about themselves, even though that drives business down and puts businesses out of business. So Fort Worth, Texas, and Indianapolis have the cheapest Uber rides, averaging $28.33 per 30-minute ride, and which is half the cost of a 30-minute ride in Seattle. I typically pay $55 to $60 to take an Uber from Seattle, from my boat, back to my home in Bellevue, and that is, I'm guessing, 11 miles. Something like that. And that's not off-peak hours, but not absolute peak hours either. And so $60, I budget $60 for a ride. So if there's any way that I can avoid that, I do. Because believe it or not, I'd rather not spend that money on somebody driving my ass from point A to point B if I can help it. So the growing economic burden comes just months after Governor Bob Ferguson signed into law what has been called the largest tax increase in Washington state history at $9.2 billion. Billion dollars. Just load us up with taxes. Load us up with taxes. And why? Because we got to pay for a whole bunch of ridiculous nonsense that isn't necessary. Because we're becoming a welfare state. Seattle, we're run by a bunch of Democrats. And you got to have all the money coming in for those who have it and give it to those who don't. Pure socialism. Pure socialism. One of the other articles I was reading this morning was how you've got Democrats on Seattle City Council, and then you've got Democrats, Socialists of America, the other half. See, there's no Republicans. I mean, there's nobody reasonable in Seattle. It's just dumb and dumber, right? But you got some Democrats who are more moderate than others, and those are just the dumb ones, not the dumber. But the socialist ones, they are dumb, and they are the ones driving this nonsense where we got to get everybody a living wage. Well, what if the economics don't work where the business owner can't make that minimum wage work? Because so much of a business is labor cost, right? Especially when you're talking about Uber Eats or Uber or DoorDash. It's all labor. It's people getting in their car driving. The burrito does not cost $32. The burrito costs what? A few bucks of food cost? You got a little bit of money for the bag, for the tin foil it comes in. I mean, you got some chicken, you got some cheese, you got some rice, you got a burrito. You're not spending $32 on that. It's all the other extra add-ons. And you know what? When you have these fees come in, you can't take them off. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that was a bad experiment. We're going to eliminate that. No, that's just not how this goes. You just keep living with that nonsense. And that's how you end up with Seattle facing the nation's worst inflation as living costs soar. And we haven't even touched on housing. Housing is ridiculously expensive. And all of this, I live here. I make the choice to live here. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing here? Well, there's a lot of other factors, isn't there? You know, I got businesses here. Kid lives in Seattle. You know, longtime family. The rest of my family is in Bellevue or up north in Marysville. And connections here. I've got a lifetime of connections here, and I'm not going to give up on that easily. But I do beat myself up for, why are you living in such an expensive area? Take the equity in your home, sell it, go move somewhere else, and live like a king. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. I am going to start doing some podcasts on exploring where does somebody go that doesn't want to live in these big blue liberal cities that are outrageously expensive. And I'm not going to really go into it deeply now, but, my two options and that I've talked about before are Idaho and Tennessee. Those are the options that I see. Tennessee, if it wasn't so far away from me and wasn't so removed from what I know, I would move there in a heartbeat because I believe their policies and the direction that they're heading in is much greater than just about anywhere else. Weather would be difficult for me. I'm a cold weather guy, 56 years in Washington State for the most part. Spent some time in Hawaii, and yeah, that's hot, and I understand climate, but I'm kind of vacationing there. Whereas on the day-to-day, I'm a Washingtonian, and it's cold here. If it hits 55 degrees, I'm going to wear shorts because that's warm. That's warm. My dad and my mom down in Oklahoma City, if it hits if it goes in the mid 70s, they're bringing out the puffy coats. They're like, oh, we're cold. I'm like, I'm going to take my shirt off because it's sunny out and we're going to get tan. Those kind of ridiculous things you do when you're coming from Seattle. But Idaho and Tennessee, those are places that I'm looking at. And believe me, other Washingtonians are looking at too, because they don't have these kind of these are inflationary costs based strictly on policy. And that's so much about what we talk about here on News for Reasonable People. It's policy. It's policy that doesn't have to be, but based on your political direction, it's gonna be if you're a Democrat society. And if you're Republican, probably going to go a little different. And that's what we're talking about. Idaho, Tennessee, Washington State. Not that tough to figure out, right? All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.